An electronic oscillator is an electronic circuit that produces a periodic oscillating electronic signal, often a sine wave or a square wave.
Hi everyone, welcome to Saturday, yay! And it's another live stream. And you can see on the screen we've got a couple of guests and a big warm welcome to Inky. How you going, Inky?
Hello, how are you? Yes, I'm great, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Also a big hi to Daren. He's new to the stream but not new to the chat. How you going, Daren?
Good evening, I'm doing well. Glad to be here.
Fabulous, fabulous. And I'm just while we've got people in the chat, make sure you can say hi and let us know if you can hear us all fine, because your feedback helps us with all the technical problems I guess we could have in this. It's crazy. I've got 2 Skype calls going and a live stream happening all at the same time, and I reckon this poor internet connection that I've got here in Australia is probably going, yeah, I can't make it across the ocean, it's too far. We'll see how we go anyway. Let us know if we have any troubles, and you know, you guys are letting us know all the problems I guess, and we'll just have to keep an eye on chat. Now just below me is the chat window, and so far there's only a couple people so far, but that's alright. This week we are going to be having a look at the Novation Peak, and the reason why we're going to be looking at the Novation Peak is because this synthesizer is pretty much it's one of those synths where the gifts just keep on coming, and yeah, this synth, I just woke it up, has just been given a whole bunch of new patches, and we're going to go through that later, but I just thought we'll show that so that everyone can see that's what we're going to be doing today. We've got a new segment today as well, so hopefully you guys can stick around for that. So the new, if those who are new to the channel, we've got our new segment, we've got our funny side segment, we do something about hardware, and we obviously chat about a whole bunch of stuff as well. But the new segment this week, and we'll hopefully if it goes down okay, is going to be, I don't know what I'm going to call it yet, but I'm going to call it, for now, we're going to call it Market Watch or Synth Price Watch or something like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to check out any crazy sort of auctions where people are after some absurd prices for their gear, and have a bit of a giggle about that. And also, while we're at it, I thought we could keep an eye on the chat, and see if anyone's got any ideas. And I'm kind of graphing over the last few months, and I've got a couple of months in now, the price of the Sh-101, the original Roland Sh-101. I always think that that's a pretty good, guide to how used vintage synth prices go, because it was a pretty common synth back in the day in the 80s when they brought it out. So it's not like a rare one, like an ARP 2500 or something like that. But I think at the same time, they're pretty sought after. So it has market demand, but at the same time it's vintage. But at the same time, it's not completely. There's still plenty of them out there. What do you guys think of vintage synth prices and all that sort of stuff? Does that interest you, or you kind of stay away from it?
I look at Juno 106s for the same kind of level playing field.
Yep, Junos. Yep.
Yeah.
What about you, Daren? Do you look at anything? Do you keep an eye on eBay or Reverb or .com or anything like that?
I always have a scan for all sort of synths, but at the back of me, I've got a Juno 6.
Nice.
With a flight case, and recently they've been going for pretty silly money actually, compared to what they were a few years back. I think you could pick these for about 400. And I've also got a 101, the original, but it's in need of a fix because it just squeals at you.
Okay. That's probably just the cap. If it's just squealing at you, probably just a capacitor. Just open it up and see if there's any burst catalytic, electrolytic, capacitors. I'm having mouth to brain problems tonight. Those capacitors that they look like cylinders and they're colourful in electronics? It's probably just one of those. And usually if they're bulgy, or if the top of them bulges up, it means that they've gone, and what you have to do is just desolder them and replace it with the exact same one. To me, that's probably to do with power supply. That would be my guess. I've heard of that before, so it should be a pretty easy synth to fix actually. How far away are you from? I mentioned Marcus Fuller last week. How far away are you from him?
I think he's down south.
I think he's Brighton, isn't he? Down that way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
and you're nowhere near there, are you?
I'm up at Manchester.
Yeah, fair enough. Fellow synth nerd handing a fellow synth nerd something to repair might be interesting.
Yeah.
Could be something good for his YouTube channel anyway. Big g'day to Good Boyd, who's just jumped into the chat. So how you going, Good Boyd? Thanks for joining us. And so let's get stuck into the news. There's not a massive amount of news, as we know. It's kind of winter down here in Australia, and it's the middle of summer over your way. Is it school summer holidays now over your way? Are kids all still out of school, and is that kind of what's happening over your way?
Yeah, and it's boiling.
Yeah, and that's probably why nothing's happening, because everyone's on leave and they're all holidaying somewhere.
And parents, me as a parent, has been building a trampoline, things like that.
Oh. And you get those things where you got to pull the springs, and you get that little pull that they give you, and that it absolutely hurts, doesn't it? Trying to pull it, and your hand is like they don't use any ergonomics in these tools, do they? They think, your hand will be able to handle,
This one went together all right.
Oh yeah.
This one went together, but I've seen grown men cry doing that job. So I was dreading it. I was like, it's going to be terrible. But no, it got put together and we were all happy at the end of it. No one was crying. The sun was out. So, but yeah, it's incredibly hot as well here.
Yeah.
Isn't it, Daren?
I've heard another week of 40 degrees in certain parts. I don't know about the UK, but I actually saw this news article where this lady in Belgium was trapped in a car for 6 days. And I think they found her yesterday. And she lived off of, she had like a packet of chewing gum that she stuck her hand out the window, and when it was raining, she filled it up with water, and then she pulled it back in and sipped out of this packet of chewing gum to try and drink so she could survive for 6 days. And the thing that kept her going was she wanted to live for her kids. It's incredible, isn't it? Those stories that you hear.
They're amazing.
I've got enough junk in my car. I'd break out that car. I'd be breaking out of that car. 6 days.
Yeah, I think her leg was pinned, and she was in incredible pain. And it was a whole side story to it, but she basically her phone ran out of battery after about half a day because it was already kind of almost run out when she was driving around. Yeah, poor girl. But anyway, she made it, and she made it in 40 degrees heat. And big g'day to Wagyu and Inverted Popes have just jumped into the chat room. So, keeping up with those. All right, let's go into the news. Okay. I've already given Daren a bit of a sneak peek with the news, but we'll just get into it anyway. So the first news item is the... well, there's nothing special about that, is there, guys? That's a Novation Peak. But what is actually the special news that's come out about this is they've brought out, I think I mentioned it briefly, a whole bunch of new Peak and Summit presets that you can download for free off of the Novation Components website. And let me just, while we do that, I'm going to. Who here in the chat or on the Skype? Who here's got a Novation Peak other than me, of course? Anyone else got one?
I want one.
So it looks like.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, just so we know. Okay, so while I'm running that, I need to get.
I think they should give me one because I own every other Novation product. So I'm just missing that in the Summit.
Yeah.
Novation.
All right, let's get. Sorry, I'm just finding issues with my computer today. It's probably struggling. Here we go. All right, so this is the Novation Peak website where they're talking about the patches. Can everyone hear me okay? Yep, cool. All right, so if we scroll down, there's a whole bunch by different artists. So they talk about the artists. I actually haven't heard of half of these, but it doesn't mean that you guys haven't. And it's just because I live in a cave down the bottom of the earth. No. So I don't even know how to pronounce some of these. Mazalu. There's Parallaxis. There's Tim Mantle or Psalm 37. I think I've heard of that guy. There's Jamie, which I've heard of. Jamie Morden, who does geosynths. He's fellow UK fella. And there's a bunch more. So I've actually downloaded the first one, which is the Mazalu or whatever it's called. And you do that through this interface here. This is the components. If you guys ever have any Novation gear, like a circuit or a base station, you guys will be familiar with this web-based sort of management system here, and you can download the patches here. So later on in the stream, we're going to go and actually get stuck into it. But you can see how many banks are here. There's Patricia Wolf. There's G-Force, which is David Spears. He did a sound pack. So yeah. Anyway, we'll get back to that, and that's the first item of news out of the way. Who gets excited when synth manufacturers make things and they make things for free? Does that kind of float your boat? What about you guys in Skype here? What do you guys think? Daren, do you get excited when they do that?
If it's free, definitely. Not just the hardware, neither, even software. If they're throwing out updates or if free patches or anything, it's always got to be a bonus, hasn't it?
I reckon so. What about you, Inky? Do you think it's a good thing?
I kind of now judge companies on whether they do it. So I have loyalty to people like Novation and Akai when they start making it better than you ever have thought. Then you start looking at those companies in the future over other things. I think, anyway. Yeah,
I agree. All right, on to the next news item, and this is something that some of you may have heard of. It's the Zynthian with a Z, and it's actually they've been around for a while actually. It's an open source project, and these guys have been making iterations of this now. This is up to version 3, and version 3 is getting pretty cool. So it's a kit that you can buy. Now that price looks pretty hefty, but just remember that price there includes the I'm saying that price and you guys can't see anything. There we go. That price there includes the Raspberry Pi 3, so, and all of that stuff. So it's got the Raspberry Pi, it's got a touch screen and a enclosure with MIDI and all that sort of stuff with it as well. But one of the cool things about it is that it's actually an open source project, and really what they're listing, you know, that this thing can do, if we go to their main website, I think it's web, we click on, there we go. Basically these are all the things that they reckon it can do. You know, multi-engine, multi-timbral, synth, rotary encoders, MIDI learning, global tuning, master MIDI control, audio recording, sampling, a whole bunch of stuff. But at the same time, this is actually a open source project. You can download the code. If you're into sort of geeky stuff and like downloading code, kind of a bit similar to what I showed last week with that launch control plugin thing. You can download the code and you can modify this and you can do anything you like with that. What do you guys think of stuff like that? Inky, what about you? Are you kind of interested in do it yourself?
Sorry, how much?
Kits?
Oh,
how much? It was €275, but that included the Raspberry Pi. So €275. You got a bundled kit where you got the module, the ribbons and cables, touchscreen, aluminium case with bolts, connectors, a whole bunch of components, and the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus.
Yeah, that's reasonable. I go for that kind of DIY, but when it gets to soldering, is it the Airbus DIY where you have to solder every capacitor in on the board? When it gets to that level, I'm not so DIY. I'd handle that.
Yeah, so they're saying here all the parts are pre-soldered and only you need to plug in wires and screw the bolts in.
Oh, yeah, that's easy.
So basically, it's a bit like the Moog workstat. Do you remember that? That came out, oh, geez, a while ago now. And that was basically just a whole bunch of stuff, and you just literally just screwed it together and it worked. You didn't have to solder anything. So, but you can, if you guys want to solder stuff, because I know you love soldering, Inky. No, I'm just joking. If you do want to solder stuff, you can get different versions of that kit, and you can go from soldering every single surface mount component. It works out cheaper.
So what are the specs of this? I mean, it seems quite reasonable for that price. I mean,
yeah. So main features. We can bring that up again while we're talking. So main features are the multi-engine, multi-timbral architecture, creates sound layers combining different synth engines presets, assigning it to different MIDI channels. So multi-timbral is pretty big. It's like you guys would know, like a Waldorf Blofeld is multi-timbral, and it's a pretty small sort of thing. But yeah, the other thing that I think is big on that, guys, is that it's actually it acts as a MIDI host as well. So if you've got other stuff that doesn't have the MIDI DIN plugs on it, the circle, chunky MIDI old-fashioned DIN plugs, you can plug a whole bunch of USB stuff into it. So there's a photo here where you can see all the USB ports on the side.
Yeah.
So and it's also got the MIDI DIN on it as well. So you can plug a whole bunch of stuff into that, and you can control all of that through that. So it's not necessarily just a synth. It's almost kind of like a little sort of MIDI/controller hub with, and it also does audio interface as well. But yeah, without getting too bogged down to it, at the end of the day, it's a Raspberry Pi. So the limitations of a Raspberry Pi is, yeah. Anyway, that's.
It's a little toolbox, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a little toolbox. Yeah, they've built their own custom boards that go with it, so it's not just a Raspberry Pi with nothing and a box. It's got a whole bunch of custom boards and a touch screen and all that sort of stuff. So it's you know, you can't just go and buy a Raspberry Pi and download the software and hope that you can do the same thing. It's more than that, obviously. All right, so that's news. All over for news. We did a couple of. There wasn't a lot to do with on the funny side this week, so we'll get stuck into the funny side. Roll the stinger. Ready, set, go. This one wasn't really funny. It was probably, well, I got a bit of a snicker out of it. I kind of I came across this. This is that movie with Jodie Foster in it. Daren, what was it called again? It was Contact or something?
Yeah, I think it was Contact, yeah.
Yeah, and she's mucking around with all this gear, and it's a sci-fi movie, and you think, oh, look at all this scientific gear, and it looks really cool. It's actually an Eventide DSP 4000 Ultra Harmonizer. So I thought, yeah, that's pretty funny. Maybe they thought that looked pretty scientific. I don't know if anyone's played
never
with
knew
them.
that.
Yeah. And I believe there's been a whole bunch of people who have gone and downloaded the film and checked it out to see if it's actually true, and apparently it is. So it's not something that they've photoshopped. It's actually a real screen grab from the film. There was another one that they showed where I haven't got it on me. It's too hard to find all this stuff. Where they were showing a Star Trek movie. I can't remember which one. I don't know what version of Star Trek it was. It was just a Star Trek, and they had like a Simmons drum machine with all the sliders on it, and apparently there was an actress in that, and she used that to launch the Enterprise with. So she's launched the Enterprise with a drum machine. So there we go. Okay, so that's the first one. I'm gonna have to get into chat in a minute. Chat's been going crazy. Okay, the next one is, where are we? It always doesn't work as fast as you'd hope to when you're doing live streams. Here we go. So the top, so those who can't read it, I'll read it out to you. The top caption says, "Things to say that will always start a fight." And then down the bottom he goes, "I can make all this sound in Ableton."
Oh, that's quite good. That's quite good.
That'd be like someone talking to Daren right now. Daren, you got all your gear behind you there, mate. Someone says to you, Daren, "I can do all that in Ableton, mate."
Yeah, but is it as much fun? That's the question.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
But it starts a fight. That's the main
Yeah.
thing. Oh, dear me. So what's happening in chat? It's been busy, hasn't it? 888 Birds there.
He said, 888 Berg said, aliens need dope sounds too, as well. Or yeah,
they do.
Harmonix.
They need the DSP Eventide effects. They do, because you know that isn't the reverb on that like 50 seconds. It's got like one of the longest. What do you call it? Delayed reverb lengths or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, it's pretty nasty. Maybe they need that time for it to reach the planet they're at.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's loads of music gear in videos. Definitely loads of gear. Okay, so we're done with the funny side and we're done with the news. I'm sorry, but it's not my fault. There's not a lot to talk about. We can just be nerdy and talk about synth stuff. In fact, what we're going to do is we're going to probably get Daren to talk a little bit about his world. And Daren, while I've got you, I'm going to see if I can try and get you full screen here.
Oh God, you don't want to do that.
Well, you know, we like to embarrass people here. That's what we do. Okay, let's find Daren. He's there. And I don't want to make you like full screen because that would just be too...
Hopefully I'm not HD.
Bit more modest than full screen. All right, and we just need to You guys can talk amongst yourself. All I'm doing right now is resizing a window so that everyone can see Daren. There we go, Daren. You got the audience. Let us know a little bit about what you do musically, and whatever you want to share with the world.
I'm just a home studio producer basically, and I've been into electronic dance music, house as it was first called, back in the mid '80s. Went out of doing it for a long time, and about 2016, I sort of had a bit of gear that I'd left in the loft. I thought, I want to get back into it. I always used to like listening to it. Why don't I try making it? And that's how it all sort of began. So some of the gear I've not bought recently. I mean, it was been tucked away in cupboards, hence the Juno. And the one above it, if you can see, the Yamaha AM1X, which is a bit of a weird synth. But you don't see many of them about now.
Yeah, there's not many.
And that's basically what I do.
And you got a bit of Euro rack above you as well?
Yes, just getting to Euro rack. I hate it and I love it. Think about Euro rack is it's a pain to get any decent noise out at first. So if you don't get on with it, you'll sort of not like it. But when you do like it, the problem is it costs so much and you can't stop buying for it. So that's the sort of hatey bit about it, because you're going to have a big bank account. So all your pennies. In fact, actually, I have a new arrival which has not been unboxed yet. Up there, it's the Platts from Musical Instruments, which has got to go in the case at some point.
888 Berg's asking if your street address. He reckons he doesn't break into houses though. I think he's oogling over your stuff, but don't worry, he lives in this part of the world, so I think you'd have to jump on a plane to come in.
He's got a long way to travel. And by the way, I think you talked about it a while back, but I also like keeping it hard copy, so CDs.
Yes, yes, good man.
And also a lot of this stuff which you can't see. Good old
hey. Nice.
So yeah, hundreds of vinyl.
Do you have any cassettes as well?
Funny enough to say, I do have a lot of cassettes, but nothing to put them on.
Fair enough.
You haven't got a cassette player?
No, I haven't. The last one I had gone, and because I've moved on to CDs, vinyl, don't bother about it. And then I looked in the drawers and I went, I've got a lot of cassettes that I can't listen to. I mean, I've got hundreds recording all the early house and dance stuff, so I need to get something to play them on.
That's brilliant. Thanks for sharing that with us. And I like how you've got all your gear sort of on the shelves behind you, because it's kind of, you just swing the chair around and grab something. It's pretty cool. I like that. So
well, that's the back wall, and then obviously got two sides there because I've got a Blofeld, and I think you were talking about the Minilog, Korg Minilog, few episodes back. I've got the Monolog, just to the left.
Yep.
So, and the same mixer you're running, as well as a Yamaha 01V mixer, which is the mic's actually going through now. That's a big beast. That was the first thing I got, I think.
Like an old analog Yamaha mixer.
No, it's digital.
It's digital?
The 01, yeah, 01V. With a Mac G3. You remember the blue Mac G3?
Yep.
That's what I first started on before I sort of gave up and then come back to it. In fact, I've still got the Mac under the desk.
Fabulous. Yeah, my Mac is, I've probably shown you guys before, is a tiny little Mac Mini. And it's like a 2012 model. I don't know if it actually is a 2012 model or if that's when I bought it. One of the two. Anyway, I pulled it apart, and which is an incredible job just on its own. Like, you could literally do a series of YouTube videos pulling apart a Mac Mini. It's things insane how they're built, and everything is all just really tight in there, like packed in there, so tight. And I managed to get a second hard drive in the thing and upgrade the memory. So the thing is about as fast as it could possibly be. It's got a Core i5 processor in it, and I think I'm just starting to get to the point now where it's starting to like become too old. Do you know what I mean? Like you start using those old Macs, and you start to realize, yeah, I can't upgrade anything without it breaking now.
But you can't afford the new ones, the new Pros.
Oh, I know. They're insane, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I like the Mac. I like the OS, and I do like Mac, but it's the cost of the Mac that's the problem. And someone's fell over. Hence, I use a PC as well.
Did you guys hear that bang? Did you? That was just the door closing. That's okay.
I thought you fell off the seat when I mentioned all Mac.
Well, that's the problem I faced, which is why I bought the MPC, is because the price of a Mac. I like the OS, and all the software I've got is for a Mac, so I'm kind of stuck. I haven't got a decent enough computer to even do proper video editing, really. It's just the price of a Mac.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I spent, I think it was like a year ago, I spent quite a lot of money building my own Windows machine to do video editing on, because it worked out that I'd only have to spend a quarter of the money to get this, like a really high spec machine that could handle, decent amount of video, because I do quite a lot of videos. And the other option was to get one of those Macs. I'd still be paying it off. It was insane how much those high-end Macs are.
Yeah, especially the new one. I mean, the one before this one, is it the cylinder one? Even they're still like,
yeah.
They're still $6,000 now, and they're about to launch the new one, which starts at $6,000 for. Well, it's a basic sort of high-end PC, isn't it?
Yeah.
In spec-wise.
But then you start looking at how much of the gear you could buy for that money, musical gear. Well, and you kind of put it off, because you can buy it in bits as well, can't you? So I keep putting it off, because it's just a lot of money, isn't it?
I suppose if you work in the box, then maybe you can justify it, or if you've got that much money.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Well, who wants to have a bit of a listen to some of the new patches that this particular artist has put on the Novation Peak? I won't bore you guys, because I'm not really a keyboard player. Are you guys ready for that, or?
Yeah, just play it out.
Cool.
Going into the, I'll just have a look. You guys can talk about the chat room while we're at it. Now, I think you guys can still talk while I'm doing this. Just, Daren, you can just say hi for something, just so I can try it out. I know we haven't tested this properly yet.
Yeah, can still hear me then?
Yeah, I can see your audio going through. I'll just take it out of studio mode. And Inky, you can still talk?
Hello?
Yeah, cool. All right, so we've still got you guys. That's awesome. All right, so as I mentioned before, this was, I think I showed you guys before on the screen, like this was coming from, what do you call it? The components website. So just so, for those who weren't watching the stream earlier, these are all the new packs that you can get from the components website. They're all free. So, Jamie's got his Geosynth one there, Tim Mantle, Parallaxis, and the one I've downloaded is the one that's hardest to pronounce. Of course I've downloaded the one that's the hardest to pronounce, isn't it? Let's just say the M1. And, yeah, so there's a whole bank here. So, starting from patch 0 all the way to, I think it goes to 127. Right, so and you can see there's actually quite a few init patches, so it's not a full bank. Look at that. How far back do we get to go before? How many patches does this guy give us? Oh, there's not that many, is there? There we go. So 50 patches if you include 0 as the first number. So 50 patches. That's not bad for free. We can't be too annoyed with that. Alright, so let's get some sound out of the Peak for a start. That might help. So this is called Wood and I. Now, those who know the Peak, it responds to aftertouch. It responds to, depending on how you program your patch. This Peak itself has got massive amount of modulation matrix options, but you've also got these 2 animate buttons here, and you can see just by pressing that, it changes it. We can find out what it changes it later, but there's the second one. So that sounds like it's either a release or maybe a reverb in there. So when you're playing this, and you can also notice too, when I hit a note, notice how 2 voice lights up. So the Peak is a 8 voice hybrid, so it's a digital oscillator, but a hybrid. It's all analog on the filter and the amp and that side of things. So digital this side, analog that side. Effects can be digital as well. But it's only 8 voices. So this is obviously 2 voice uniform, but there's also 3 oscillators. So I don't know how they've programmed this particular patch, but technically if they've used all 3 oscillators and 2 voices, that's 10 oscillators for 1 note. Pretty insane, hey? Alright, enough of that patch. That sounds a bit interesting. Alright, Aardvark. Now let's just double check. Okay, so I'm just double checking on my mixer to make sure I didn't have any effects running. Those effects are coming out of the Peak as well. I actually really like the Peak's effects. I think they've done a really good job. They're not like, sometimes you get synths and they've got really naff sounding effects. They just like, it's like they've just tacked it on. They borrowed it, some algorithm from someone. So that's kind of like a reverb, I think. So yeah, so that's definitely a reverb. Oh wow, no wonder that sounds thick. Look how many voices that's using. Jeez. All right, while we're just getting it, let's go back to you guys. Some opinions so far?
Well,
very, very light on so far.
I think it sounds pretty decent, to be honest.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Oh, that's peaked. That's just peaked the channel. Sorry, guys. There's only so much I can do to stop it from peaking. Probably put a limiter on it, I guess. That's obviously got a delay effect on that one. And you can turn all that stuff off if you don't want it. And then obviously, you know, it was called back in the 80s. This is called Big Room. This one was, I think we were playing this one before, Daren. One thing I like about the Peak, guys, is it's got an arpeggiator. Now you can see, there's the arpeggiator there, right? And you can just turn it off and it won't do that. Turn it back on and it starts doing that. You can latch it and just hands-free. Good thing about hands-free is more hands for playing with the knobs. So, yeah. Should we keep going, or we want to have a bit of? Let's have a look at chat and see what's happening down there. Talking about whether you should buy one. Hi, Mikkel. How you going? Okay, so Triple Eight Berg's saying about the Peak is kind of a lot of people are using it as single note sort of deep goodness. It can be, but when I use it in my recordings, I use it as probably a pad machine. Is Daren, has he paused? I know he's still that cool. So just sometimes I notice there's glitches on the cameras, and I'm just thinking it's the Australian internet that's letting us down. So I actually use this pretty much as a polyphonic synth, just like I use my System 8 as a polyphonic synth. I tend, if I'm going to be stuck with like a one finger type note job on this, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, nah, that's not the role of this synthesizer. It can do it, yes, I know it's arguments, blah blah blah, but I've got other synths, as you guys know, that does those jobs. So I'd like this to perform its role in its full capacity, and you know.
I kind of know what you're saying though, because a lot of the things I've heard are monophonic on the demonstrations, which is kind of led me to wonder how well it does pads. But it looks really
Keep talking.
it looks really designed well for live playing, for live manipulation.
Yeah.
I think they've designed it to be played and fiddled with live, if that makes sense.
So in terms of, I think one thing is it can do anything, because it's got the digital side, it's got the analog side, it's got the voices to be, you know, deep in terms of how many 8 voices polyphony is heaps, and I know we talk about 16 and 64 and all that sort of stuff, but really in reality 8 is actually a lot when you're playing. I mean, you've only got 10 fingers and you've got 3 oscillators per 4 fingers technically, so I mean that's a lot. And then if you buy the Summit, which is it's basically this times 2, that's 16. So you know, yes, you can combine all the voices in unison and make a really fat sounding voice, or you can make this a mono synth, or you can just play it as a poly. So it's all there for us to use however we want to use it. And I guess in a way I would call it a synth that doesn't discriminate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's one of those synths, isn't it, that's going to be used for pretty much anything you want. So you could just get away with just having the peak, maybe a drum machine or stuff. But it's not like a one trick pony, is it?
Not a one trick pony, no. It's definitely something that inspires you, and that's, you know, like Inky was saying, it's an instrument that inspires you to play. It's a player's instrument, with exception to the fact that this is a module, right? So you know, someone could argue, well, there's no keyboard attached to this, it's just it's a box. But actually I like that. I like the fact that there's no keyboard attached to it, because you can use your favorite keyboard. Like Daren, you could use your Juno on this. Actually, no, you couldn't use your Juno because it doesn't, unless yours has got the MIDI mod on it. But yeah.
But I've got a 61 piano keyboard to the side of me, via a LACV pointing at 66, and it's like I say, I'd rather have them without the keyboards, because it takes up so much room, whereas you could have like two like peaks or the size of the Summit without the keyboard. You could have 2 of them instead of you just have room for 1 Summit. So you can just build up with that without having the keyboard. Just have 1 controller keyboard, or maybe 2 controller keyboards, depending.
Yeah. And I can't seem to settle on one actually at the moment. I've got the Roland A500 Pro, and I mean, these are just MIDI controllers, nothing else. They just don't do anything else. And I've got a Novation Impulse, and yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of like not really happy with either. They're good. They do things that I need, but they're not really the same as, you know. I've got a Sub 37, and the keyboard on that is beautiful, and I've got a DX7, DX7 II, and the keyboard on that is beautiful. So some of my synths sound, the keyboards to play on are so much better than some of the MIDI controllers. So I know what you're saying, Daren. It's nice to have, you know, something for your hands to play, and it kind of puts it to that sort of music, you know, that creation that we love. So
look, it puts the cost of the synth slightly down, doesn't it? If you're getting a desktop version rather than the keyboard version. in some cases.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and this is not normally sitting here like this for me. For those playing along at home, I don't normally have it sitting flat like that. I mean, I couldn't even use this like this at the moment. When I'm doing the YouTube stream, I'm actually looking at my monitor so I can see what knobs I'm touching, because I literally can't work like that, like on a flat plane. You can't work. So what I've got is...
I totally work that way. I can't stand anything that's like, I don't understand how you can do Eurorack at that angle. It would just drive me.
You can have it on the desk. You don't have to have it upright.
No, you don't.
Yeah,
have
but
to.
no, but you don't. No, yeah. Well, that's how I would do it. But
So that's the mounts that you can buy. These are separate. It doesn't come in the box like this. It actually comes with little wooden sides, which I haven't got on at the moment. And that mount, you can mount it 2 different ways. So it can be quite it's hard to show you guys. It can stand. That's probably the angle that I have it on. So you can see it's almost upright. Like that. Because I've got it normally just here, right? And I've got 2 tiers there, so it sits at the bottom tier, and it literally fills that whole space in there. So I've got a keyboard, I've got the MS-101 in front of it, and then all of those knobs are in front. So it's like right in front of you. So it's actually quite good. But like you said, you can put it flat, or you can have it. You can just get those little IKEA laptop stands. You can have it sitting on one of those. So I think it's pretty functional. It's quite smart how they've done it. Some guys put it in a Eurorack too, I think. So you can actually get Eurorack cases for them that actually sits like the ears, and it will sit in Eurorack. Takes up. I don't know if it's perfect in 2. What do you call it? What's like 1 row?
5U is it? Oh.
One move, yeah, and you go HP for how wide. But it doesn't look like it'd fit in one new rack, does it?
No, it's 2U. I'm pretty sure it's 2U, and I think it fits in 2U. Yeah, I actually haven't tested. I've got a Arturia rack root there behind me, but I wouldn't put it in a Euro rack. I think it's silly. But yeah, all right. The chat's going crazy. So yeah, there's a bit of talk about the Prologue, and I get a lot of questions. I mean, I don't own a Prologue because I've got a mini log. I don't need to. But a lot of people ask about the Prologue, and is that a good polysynth? Is that, and the answer is, of course it is. It's amazing polysynth. But I think there's one thing that lets it down, and it's not a deal breaker. It's just a small thing. So, it's a bit like the System 8, how it doesn't have aftertouch. It doesn't stop you from buying it. It's a small thing that might annoy you, but you get over it. So the thing that lets me down on the Prologue is it's only got 1 LFO. So, and I mean, it's not a big deal. I mean, how often do you use 2 LFOs? Some people say all the time. Some people say I only ever use 1. The Peak's got 3. So it's got 2, and it's got another one that they've added in the software. So, how many LFOs do you... And it's also got looping envelopes as well. So, I mean, technically they're LFOs, aren't they? So, and an oscillator that you can put into low frequency mode.
Well,
what do you need?
I can't talk about that because I've got modular, so LFOs as many as you want.
Yeah, just go nuts. Yeah, I mean, like we've all got the Neutron, haven't we? Have you got the Neutron, Daren?
No, I've got I've got the Erebus, which is
just the Erebus. Yeah.
Oh,
Let's make Daren full screen so he can show off his. There you go.
Yeah, I've got the Erebus just up there.
Yeah,
wrong way.
Above your key step.
Key step there, which gets changed sometimes with the not the drum brute, the Beat Step Pro.
Yep.
I can't get on with the Beat Step Pro.
No, I'm the same. I'm the same.
I like the idea of it. I think it's great, but it just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah, then the modular. Got to get it right. The modular just here.
Yeah.
Which I've got mutable instrument stages, so I can theory have 6 LFOs.
Yeah, nice.
And
look how much space that takes up. It's hardly anything. It's just a little you know.
It's a nice dope for case.
Yeah.
So.
Is that one of
But
those
it's not-
dope for case that you put together yourself?
No, it's the pre-built
The
one.
pre-built one, yeah.
The low-cost pre-built one. Say
Yeah.
low cost, but
Nothing's low cost. Nothing's low cost.
look to the other side. You'll see.
Yep.
Now let's see. Remember the old SR16 drum machine?
Oh, I used to have one of those. The Alesis one, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Is that how you guys say it, Alesis?
At least it's
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
That's a,
Yeah, I used to have
Yeah.
one of those.
Yeah.
yeah.
You know what? There's actually there's some famous Depeche Mode sounds in that they, because Alesis have got their, you know, they've had their own sounds for years, and I mean that's all just digital now, that one, and I think that was their last one that they made, isn't it? I don't think they've updated it since that. But there's
No, you can still buy them brand new.
yeah, you can still buy them, yeah.
Identical, aren't they? They've not done anything to
Yeah,
it.
and you know, there's a very famous Depeche Mode album called Violator, and it was a lot of Alesis drum sounds in that, some of their tracks.
Yeah, cool. That and I have a T. I think you've got a TR8. Have I seen it in your studio?
Yeah, I've got a TR8. Yeah, it's not there.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go. Bit of gear nerdiness. Oh, that's what we were going to do, weren't we? We were going to look at synths online that were crazy kind of prices, right? So I reckon that's a good segue. This is the new segment. I haven't got a stinger for it yet because I reckon you guys can come up with some ideas of what I should do as a stinger. But let's get this going. So what this segment is basically we're going to have a look at some crazy synth prices online. I don't know, you can tell me whether this is interesting or not for you guys, but let's have a look at this first one. This is not actually even a synth. I just thought this was so stupid. This is a Behringer T1 tube condenser microphone preamp. And the guy on eBay wants US $836 for it. And I think they retail for about $50. You could still get them at the shop for $50. Someone will probably correct me. I don't know. It's along those lines. I mean, this is what we call eBay scammers on crack. So that's the first one. And I was actually really, really hoping that this was still the auction of this one was still live, because when I was researching for this week's live stream, it was still live. But then I went to it this morning, and the auction's no longer available, and I was really, really upset. But there it is there. The Tonus Model 2002 ARP25 vintage modular synthesizer, fully restored. So those who don't know, an ARP 2500, there's very, very few in the world. I don't even know if there'd even be 100. I think there'd probably be less. Someone would probably tell us in chat how many there are. But like Jean-Michel Jarre's probably got all of them because he used them. And this thing, look at the price, guys. 75,000 British pounds is what they wanted for this thing. Or they're saying it's approximately 90,000 US dollars. So, how bad do we want something? That's the question.
Well, but hold on. Couldn't you argue that if Moog 1
Yeah.
is £8,000,
Yeah.
or how much is a 16 voice? Is it how much is the?
I think it's 16 voices. Yeah.
Is that because isn't it £8,000 for the 8 voice, and then it's more expensive for the 16?
£8,000 too. Not. Yeah.
Yeah. So you could argue that's kind of a bit of a deal.
Well,
really?
I mean, how many voices are in an ARP 2500? There's 3 oscillators, isn't it? 3 oscillators,
Yeah, but...
single voice. Not even a sequencer.
Yeah.
One filter.
And someone's bought it, haven't they? Someone bought
Well,
it.
it said someone said Inverted Pope said it's sold by I See You Coming. I thought it might have been sold by I See You Crying, more like it. Or the wife's just left you.
I have so much money, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. I'll just pick it up in my Ferrari. I can't fit it in the back of my Ferrari. I'll just get my mate to turn up in his Hummer in here. Oh gosh. So anyway, that's the idea. Is we can check out. Hopefully, if it's every week, we can do it. We can find some interesting stuff on on the nets. I did check out Reverb to see if there's anyone trying to sell something crazy. It's a bit hard to work. Reverb doesn't kind of work like you know what I mean with eBay. You can go into stuff and sort it by price, and then you can click on completed listings, and you can look at stuff that's been sold. So you can actually do market research. Whereas in Reverb, I haven't worked out how to do that. I know you can look for something specific and then sort it by the price, but I don't think you can ever go in and have a look at stuff that's been sold, could you? Does anyone who's used Reverb here? I've used them once.
I've not. Well, I've had a look on Reverb. I've not really used them that well, so.
I don't get on with the whole. I don't know. There's something about it. It's kind of hard to search for stuff. I don't know. It's a bit weird. Did you find that, or is it just me? I just went back.
I find it a bit weird too. Yeah, that's kind of what I was alluding to. I mean, it might just be because I'm a Luddite at times, and I have no idea what I'm doing. But anyway.
No, well, I don't know. There's 3 people who aren't getting it, who are musicians, who are using eBay. That's kind of.
I prefer not to use eBay though. I mean, to be honest, I don't know about you guys. Do you find now eBay is getting crazy with the postage side of things? It's just getting out of hand, isn't it? Do you guys find that over your way? It's just like everything is the postage. Like if you went down to the post office and paid for that to be posted, and then you added a little bit extra for the packaging and stuff like that, it's nowhere near how much you've been asked to pay on stuff on eBay. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's everyone trying to make a bit more profit, for what the price is. Think, well, get a couple more dollars, pounds out of it, we'll whack the postage up.
So I thought, while we're doing this whole idea of market watch and prices and that and scammers, at the same time, what I thought we'd do, and I don't know if you guys appreciate this, but I did put a little bit of effort into this. I actually did a graph. I got a bit nerdy and did a graph for you guys. And this is the Roland Sh-101. And as you can see, I went back over 3 months. Currently, what you can see it for sale for in the last 3 months. And you can see that Reverb has pretty much stayed. This is US dollars, by the way, so it makes it easy for all of us if we just use US dollars. But you can see in June, you could actually get an SH-101 pretty cheap. And then it looks like it's just gone boom. Now, this phenomenon does tend to happen with... I've been told with the when the Model D first came out from Behringer, a lot of the Moog Model D prices went up, and everyone thought they were, you'd think the opposite, wouldn't you? You'd think because now you can use a Model D, and you can get it like for 200 quid or whatever it is. Why would you go and spend 1,000, 2,000 quid on a Model D from Moog and it makes the same sound? Well, it's weird. It's almost like it's made them more valuable. Maybe because the other one just doesn't have value. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's a prestige type of thing. It's, they might sound identical near enough, but you've got the original prestige, version of whatever it happens to be, whether it's like say the Moog one, Mini Moog, the SH-101. I mean, you've got the Behringer one now, and I bet it sounds, if it's in a track, you're never going to know whether it's the original or not.
No one's going to know that. And I think that's the whole argument about synth collectors versus synth players. I mean, really true to form synth players, do they really care? They just want the sound. And even that, you could probably even argue you could probably get some samples or even use a VST. So
Well,
I think there's a bit of cross between the two too.
That was the other thing I was going to say. Says you could do it all in the box. If you're writing a track to go out and you do it all in the box, or do it all on hardware, but obviously they master it in the box. Is anyone really going to notice if they're around the club listening to it? No.
Yeah. What about you, Inky? What do you think about all this with the pricing and, how does it affect you?
I think there's certain bits of kit that you've always liked. So, like an 808 drum machine. If you really like that sound and you had the money, you'd want the original, wouldn't you? Because you love it so much. I mean, I don't see the point of getting originals when we can buy other stuff cheaper if you don't really love it. But I can understand why they might want that. It's the same reason I prefer DJing on Technics rather than any other device. There's no reason for it in a club. I probably wouldn't be playing on them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's you love it.
Yeah, I'm the same. Even though I said you'd never know if it was being played, you'd never know whether it was made on the original or a VST or a clone. I'd still want the original though.
Yeah, because you love it.
Yeah.
But you don't want the original of things you're not really bothered about. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're not a collector. It's a passion.
Well, it's like you fell in love with your Technics SL. Are they 10s?
Yeah.
Yeah.
12 tons.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't like them? But it's not to say that they didn't improve it later on. But you still like the good old original Technics 20 tones.
Yeah. Well, I would argue they didn't, but yeah. Yeah, because that's what I love. So I get it. I don't get people collecting stuff for the sake of it, and
as museum pieces,
yeah,
but never use it. If you're going to use it, buy whatever you want if you can afford it.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. If it makes you feel more creative, or if it gives you a stimulus of some sort, for me, I find gear gives me a stimulus. So like I was talking about with the Peak before, when I play that, even when I bought it, it got me excited. It got me I wrote tracks as soon as I bought that. So to me, that's a win. If something stimulated you to become creative, that's a win. If it means that you have to go out and buy a £75,000 ARP 2500 and take it home in the back of your Ferrari, if that's what you need to stimulate you to make $2 off of Spotify, then go for it. We're just being cynical people. That's all we're doing.
But it's a bigger topic, isn't it? It's a fine line of how much do you need, want versus I've got enough versus too much where you're not actually making stuff on it because you've got too much choice. So it's a tricky balance, isn't it?
Yeah, it
do you
is.
know?
It is. And while we're at it too, I think the guys in chat have been crazy talking about it as well. So yeah, absolutely going nuts. Wagyu reckons someone sold a Volca Keys, a Volca Beats, and a key step for 196 million pounds. It says. Okay, we'll trust that.
What?
Triple Eight Berg saying there's a clever tactics recently searching an Australian music store single item sale. Didn't buy, then got an email with $200 off 3 days later. Ah, yes. Now that could be even completely another topic. I have to put a pin in that, but it's like, have you guys ever noticed that if you search for something on your phone or on your PC or Mac or whatever, and then the next day or that same day, all of a sudden you're getting an ad, whether it's in Facebook, I don't know what you guys use, Facebook or Twitter, there's an ad for the same bloody thing that you searched for. And you're just thinking to yourself, these big, massive tech giant companies, they're watching us. They're filling us with what we need. They're looking to see what we're searching for, and if it's a product, they're going to be trying to get the ad revenue out of that. Definitely.
Oh yeah, even if you search on eBay for a while, next minute, you're getting ads for stuff that you thought, how did that come about? I was searching, some synth.
Well, I got an email today from eBay saying, we've found an SH-101 for you. And I don't even want one. I was just on eBay trying to get my graph. So there you go.
That's even worse, isn't it? It's like being tempted. You do want an SH-101.
Please come and buy our SH-101s. So, Triple Eight Berg actually sent me a message earlier today, which I thought was interesting, and he was telling me about... last week we talked about the grain station. Do you remember, Inky? We were talking about that thing that uses the Novation launch control XL, and you've got open source software and you've got to download it, blah, 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 blah. And I'm sure, you're probably like me, we haven't even touched it properly yet. Well, Triple Eight Berg's gone crazy, and he's actually had a chat to someone, and he's basically saying that what did he ask? Is it possible to ever be ported over for Max for Live as a device, or something similar to run in Ableton? And someone was saying that that's like a fairly good idea. Like I don't know how much interaction computer code works across different platforms. Obviously, if you start getting into programming, you'll probably know that when you compile code, it is compiled based on the processor and the chipsets that are on that particular platform. So a Raspberry Pi is different to other things. And so basically, thought of it was possible to take the bottom off the launch control and fit a Raspberry Pi module inside, underneath the launch control, and have it as a complete standalone machine. That would be pretty. I just thought, he's come up with a really good idea, and saving him having to put that big spiel in the chat. We can all discuss it as tubers and chatters. So, what did you guys think of that idea?
A Raspberry Pi in the launch control.
Yeah, chuck a Raspberry Pi inside a launch control, and
Why?
Use something like this grain station software that's open source.
I think it sounds a good idea, actually.
Well, your granular sampling and that sort of stuff.
Yeah. There is I forget what it's called. There is a granular sampler, isn't there? Like a desktop, about the size of the Waldorf Blofeld.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called, but I think that's who's going to do it.
So that I reckon he's come up with something good there, and he's saying it's a cheap man's Tasty Chips GR1. So you guys have heard of the Tasty Chips GR1, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that technically would give you the same sort of results, wouldn't it? You've got a granular synth modifying it. He's doing it with all the knobs and sliders and stuff like that. And obviously the Tasty Chips thing is a little bit more sophisticated, but do you need to look at a tiny little OLED screen when really you're just listening to sounds in your ears? So there is a video. I'll get when we finish doing the stream, I'll put a link in the description of this video that Triple Eight Berg's talking about. So you guys, when you watch it back, you can find the link and we'll put it up for you. I'm not going to play it now because it's something that you got to kind of watch for more than about 30 seconds. So yeah.
So is he going to have a go at it?
I don't know, Triple Eight Berg. Are you going to take this further, or are you going to? Is this kind of something that you've just suggested, or is it something that you could achieve yourself? Let us know in the chat. Definitely worth finding that out. Apparently, the Wagyu saying apparently the GR1 is a Raspberry Pi inside anyway. So there you go. I didn't know that. A lot of these things that you see that come out, Triple Eight Bird saying maybe. challenge accepted is what he's supposed to say. A lot of these things that come out, like, what's that one we were talking about the other day? The SP2400. Do you guys remember we were talking about the SP2400, which is the famous EMU SP1200, sampler that was out in the 80s, right? And they're remaking it to the SP2400. The thing that's inside that, does anyone know if that's a Raspberry Pi? So, yeah.
I can't remember what they said was in that.
It's either an Arduino or a Pi, or it might be something different.
Yeah.
There's a few of those different platforms out now anyway, so... Yeah, the Isla Instruments is the company that's making that, SP2400. I'm actually starting to... What do you guys think about that? I'm actually starting to really grow interest in that. I found myself this morning actually watching videos on musicians, not like YouTube geeks, actually music videos, on people that actually wrote music back in the 80s using the SP1200. So there was like Beastie Boys, I think that was an SP16, an SP12, sorry. The Beastie Boys used an SP12, but there was Beastie Boys, there was like a whole bunch of the rap scene and early hip hop days, which is not a massive like in my years, but then there was like guys like Pop Elite itself in the UK. They used a lot of that sort of stuff. They used Akai a lot, but they also used the SP1200. So that that brings it back closer to home for you guys, anyway.
Yeah, Chemical Brothers did as well.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, and Prodigy, I believe.
Yeah, yeah, there were days when they were using that.
It's
I think
the sound, isn't it? That thing made.
Yeah.
It was kind of was it 8-bit or 12-bit? The crunchiness of it.
I think it was 12-bit.
Yeah. Oh yes, it wouldn't have been 8-bit. That's long before that, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I still like that type of that 12-bit style.
I liked how you could this new one's going to be even better, and it'll do a lot more than this. But in the old days, we take a lot of this stuff for granted because we hear these tricks that they did. But when you got a sample into the 1200, you could paste it across all the lanes, the 8 lanes, right? And then it would slowly get quieter, the level of it. So you could when you're actually recording your sequence, you could have like hats, and they're not all sounding the same level. So you could kind of, do that with hats, and some are louder and some are a bit quieter, and that's how you get that sort of tricked up hat sound that they used to get. And I never actually knew that until I was watching these videos today, and I thought, that's how they did that. And that's, just a feature within the 1200.
We have too many easy features now to get what you want, and we don't realise what you have to use to do to get just simple things.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I was thinking, okay, I've got, Inky and I both have got an MPC Live, and there's no thing that will do that. Like, if you can't just press a button and it will paste the same sample across your 16 pads at a different level. You'd have to sit there and, slowly adjust each level on each pad before you got it to how you wanted it. I mean, it'd take 5 minutes. It wouldn't take that long, but on that SP1200, it was just a button, done it, and then before you know it, you're sequencing it. It was just something really interesting that I never knew about.
They don't think you need that anymore.
No. I mean, you can use what do you call it?
No,
velocity and stuff like that now. Yeah.
Stick that facility back in them.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the old, the old type of style that they used to do. Why can't they put that back in the new stuff as well?
Well, I mean, that's kind of what I was getting at. Like, there were workflows that led us to music being a certain way. Do you know what I mean? And some of us, who haven't used the hardware, I've never used 1200, so I never knew that. And watching these videos today, obviously, it was like it was like, it was one of those aha moments.
Yeah, it's like when the first sampler was around, wasn't it? It was just, it could hold, a couple of samples at a few seconds long at the time. But the way you have to be creative about it, and now it's just like, you can, thousands of samples, and it does it all for you. So, yeah, going back to the old type is, I think it was more. What's the word? It's more creative, wasn't it?
Yeah, it kind
You
of.
had to be.
Yeah, it kind of forces you to a certain workflow, doesn't it, Inky?
Yeah, you have to be because you've got so little to work with. You know, you've got a chunk of sound that's a second, and you've got to speed it up or slow it down to pitch it. There wasn't that much you could work with, but the SP, the new SP, I think it's about workflow as well, isn't it?
Yep, it is.
The workflow really interests me because, yeah, what it can do, it seems fast for live, for live use.
Well,
with the
that's
sliders.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's hard to sort of talk about something that we haven't got in front of us. But you know, because it's got the sliders. So you pull a sample in, right, and then all of a sudden, just by default, the slider becomes the pitch. So you can tune whatever that sample. It might be a drum, or it might be a synth sound that you've imported or whatever. So immediately you're tuning that, and then once you've done that, you can press another button and it locks it in. And then you can have different samples across each of your tracks, and then you can start playing it, and then record that. That's the kind of workflow that it is. So it's kind of like sample comes in, you're tuning it, you're pitching it, you're setting the levels, bang, you're using it. It's like that. That was kind of quick and dirty.
See, I love that because that's kind of what I've been doing on the launch control to make it do that. So I've got knobs that have got pitch on and reverse stuff. It looks really good. I really like the simplicity of it, that you could just, it's all done for you.
Yeah. And I mean, there's also the Roland SP404 that who was mentioning that in the chat before. Triple Eight Berg mentioned it. So have you guys ever tried an SP404 from Roland? You know that?
No.
It's quite an ugly looking sampler, isn't it, really?
It's like a sandwich box.
It's like a sandwich box, yeah. It's like what the kids used to take to school. But it's got all those, tiny little square pads down the bottom. There was one thing that it did that a lot of samplers didn't do, and that was it gave you the ability to play technically an unlimited time sample. And that would be only limited by the fact that you might have only, say, a 16 gig SD card, or you might only have a 32. I mean, imagine how long a 32 gig sample is going to play for. I mean, that's insane. That was one of the big things that a lot of the DJs used the SP404, was they could literally just put full song samples in and bang, launch it. It would be keyed up with all the, MIDI syncing and everything, and then they could muck around with it and resample it, play it through effects. So that was kind of one of the things that people did quick and dirty with it. And yeah, I was just kind of thinking you guys might have had some experience with that.
Not really, but I tell you what, you're sort of talking about old samplers, a little battery on the fly, four pads. Do you remember this? Let's just get down here.
Oh yes, the SU10.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh geez. Now, what's that? Is that early 2000s or late 90s?
I think it's late 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I might have even owned one of those.
With the scratch.
Yeah.
Part there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't bad.
It was a novelty at the time. It was quite inspirational, wasn't it, for being a small battery-powered sampler that you could basically jam live on.
I think that the battery-powered part of it was probably the big seller for it. The fact that it was battery-powered.
Yeah,
because everything else wasn't.
Similar size to the Korg vocal stuff now, isn't it?
Mm.
So Yamaha came up with a small sampler like the Korgs are now.
Mikhail's just told us that he's bought an Akai S2000 unit for $10. I mean, like, if you told, like, is it Andy Crabb, the guy from Pop Leader? So if you told him that, he'd be swearing a bit. I know he swears a bit as it is. I mean, those guys would have paid top dollars for those S2000s in the day. in the late
Yeah.
90s, late 80s, early 90s. Those things were an absolute nightmare to program. If you had the rack one, so I think most of them were rack ones, weren't they? And you had to literally you had like that little number pad thing, and you had to do everything through that, and there's a little dial. Oh, that would have been a nightmare to program.
Well, it's like the S950 Akai sample, isn't it? And the 3200, which I think was the bigger brother to the 2000.
Yeah, the 2000 I think had a lesser sampling rate. That might have been 12, and then the 3000 might have been 16.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
more even. Yeah.
With the floppy drive in.
Yep, that's it. Oh, the emus, the original ones that came out, like what Depeche Mode used. I think the emulator 2. I think a lot of people will talk about emulator 1, but I think emulator 2 was kind of a lot more of the go-to one that most people had, because they fixed a lot of problems with the emulator 1 in it.
Yeah.
And you had the floppy drive, and it took up, like, there was a big blob of plastic on the side, and that was the floppy drive. It just took up so much space, and there was this huge, keyboard on the right. Yeah.
Couldn't the floppy drives only hold something like 1.1 megabytes or something like that? Something daft.
Yeah, 1.44 kilobytes. Yeah.
So it's like you're pretty limited on your samples.
Well, I was talking about that when. Do you remember that I don't know if you were there. I had the stream a couple of weeks ago where I had the Amiga.
Yeah.
And
Amiga, yeah.
the floppy disks that I have that go in the Amiga are only 720K. So when they developed that 3.5-inch floppy disk, which is the hard case floppy disk, this is after the actual real floppy disk ones. They first started out only being 700 and something K, or even actually might have even been smaller than that. I can't even remember now that far back. But it wasn't like until IBM went to this thing called a HDF floppy disk, and then it went up to 1.44 meg, which is 1,440K, which is what you were talking about. And that broke the meg on a floppy disk. That was kind of it.
It's yeah, I was just looking at this. Can't get anything. The hard floppy disk.
Yeah. So see how it says 2HD on it?
There you go. Is that the right way up?
Yep, 1.44 megabytes. So 1,440K.
Yeah.
Which is double what mine on the Amiga does.
And
you can still buy them today. I've got about 20 boxes in the drawer in the room just next to me here. So they're still making those things because there's still a lot of computers and things that still use them, which is crazy.
Yamaha uses them, the XP50.
Yep.
Which is the keyboard version of the JV1080.
That is my favourite XP.
The XP50?
XP50, yeah. There's a video on my channel called My First Synth, where I talk about the XP10, and which I've still got. It's my first synth that I ever bought. And when I bought it, the guy was trying to sell me the XP50. There's no way in the world I could afford an XP50. We're talking about like early 90s, maybe mid 90s at the latest, probably 94, something like that, somewhere around there. And I played the XP50 probably for about 2 hours in the shop, and I reckon the guy was getting pissed off with me. I ended up buying the XP10 because that's all I could afford. And then years later, I got an XP30. Did you ever hear about the XP30?
Yeah, well, it came the XP50, then the XP80, which was like the big one.
The big one, yeah.
Which had more expansion ports. I've got the two. I think I've got the hip hop board and the techno board in that one. Yeah, and then after that they came out with the XP30, didn't they? Which was
early 2000s, like probably around 2002. I think that came out.
Yeah.
So that's quite quite a long period of time that they were bringing out the XP series, which were all workstations technically. So, but the difference between the 30 and the 80 and the 60 and the 50, so the 80, 50, and 60 are all in the kind of same boat. They all had the floppy disk in it, right? and then the 30 had those JV 108080 expansion cards that Roland started to make. You know, the what are they? I think they call them the JV 80s or the JV 8080s or whatever they're called. They're those expansion cards, and they go on there's heaps of Roland synths around, you know, late 90s, early 2000s that had these expansion cards, and they're just basically sound blanks, basically.
Yeah, that's what you can put in the XP50 as well.
So you can. Oh, okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah, you take the bottom off, and you've got 4 expansion ports. I think on the 8, on the 50 you had 4 expansion ports underneath, and on the 80 you had 6. So like the JV8 2080 cards would go in these, because I've got the 2 cards in. Like I say, the hip hop card and the techno card. I wanted the pads card, but that was at the time expensive, and they're still going for expensive money now.
Yeah,
about $75 or £75.
So when I had my XP30, I actually sold it because, you know, Inky and I were talking about me hoarding a couple of weeks ago. But I sold it because it was one of the only synths that I had. I've actually got another one here that I want to sell that I just never got to use, and it featured in a few tracks, and I made some songs with in there. But I can actually get those sounds off the Roland Cloud now, because it was all digital. So it's not going to, like you say, it's in the mix. It's not going to make it sound any different if I wanted to recreate that particular sound.
Yeah.
But because it was 100% digital, I mean, about the only thing you could say is, it will have different digital to audio converters on the back, and if you recorded it that way, it might sound different, you know. But really, it's
well,
the same.
The thing I do like about it, I mean, because it's getting on now as a keyboard and sound palette, is you can it can have 4 voices, so you can all the Roland sound palette that's in there, you can interchange with them. So you could have one voice off, say, the techno card, one voice off the hip hop card, and so on, and then blend them together. So like I say, it's just a sound source rather than a played keyboard.
Yeah, that's what I actually had the XP30 for. I actually liked the sounds in it. They're actually really good. They're very, very good quality sounds.
Nice string sounds.
Yeah, and you know those string sounds, most of them are actually based off of like Jupiters and Junos.
Yeah.
So, you know, and also the Roland string machines, like the VP, is it 330, whatever it's called. So some of those string sounds were actually PCM samples off real analog machines. A lot of people actually don't realize that, and obviously they've, you know, EQ'd it and made it sound all fancy, but they were actually originally samples from those old vintage machines. Yeah.
That's why they sound good.
That's why they sound good, yeah. And I actually think in some cases they sound better than the actual original analog stuff, because then you've got the whole digital PCM world that you're playing with. Does that make sense? Like it's a different world. I don't know.
Yeah. Also, the quality that they I'll not say sample, but constructed them as are always going to be. They're not going to have that analog influence of it deteriorating, are they? It's always going to be there exactly how it was.
That's right. Yeah. So it doesn't go out of tune, or you aren't going to have drifting things and that sort of stuff. Yeah. It's very snappy. All I'm going to say, the thing that I liked about the XP series as total was really it was like a performer's synth. You know, it actually got you to be quite creative. Like you could do things like X dual, and you could do splits, and like you were talking about playing patches off different expansion cards. So you know that sort of stuff. You know, at the same time you could also do arpeggiators on a split, and then you might have a bass line that's arpeggiated, and on the other part of the keyboard you might have a string sound. And all this stuff, we take it for granted because we've been doing it in, you know, digital synths for years. But this is back, you know, early days.
And it was one of the ones that had the RPS as well, real time phase sequencing, which was quite new at the time.
Yeah.
Which was like, wow, no wonder you can go on stage with that. Just whack a key and off you go.
Yeah, and I mean, Roland, I don't know how true this is, but I have a theory that for many, many years they have some sort of EQ on the back end of their outputs. So I mean, it's hard to know because if you look at a lot of their circuits, if you take apart their synths and look at their circuits, it's all hidden in electronics, and unless really know what you're looking for, it's kind of like, yeah, there's a whole bunch of resistors and capacitors in there. How would you know? But I just find that how do I explain? So when you hear something that's come out the back, as in the main outputs of a Roland synth, especially from the late 80s, early 90s, that sort of stuff, it always sounds a lot warmer and a lot more, maybe a tiny smidge they've oomphed the bottom end a bit on it, as opposed to, how do I explain it? If you were to compare that to, alright, so here's an example. If you were to listen to Roland Cloud and have a listen to the D50 in Roland Cloud through your headphones that goes through your computer sound card, and then you go and plug in an actual real D50 synth and listen to it through the back of the headphone socket, it sounds like, it sounds more bottom-endy, more beefy, more EQ-y. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes.
So they've polished the output.
Yeah, I think sometimes they try to be too clean about things, trying to get it too precise, too neat. Just leave it as it was. You get the EQ in, but yeah, it's like if you put the Yamaha and the Roland on a similar sound and you play them, there is some different there.
Well, I actually, yeah. I mean, I'm a big DX7 lover, and one of the biggest things about DX7s is the digital to audio. Sorry, digital. What am I saying? Digital audio. Digital to analog converters that are in them, and the earlier ones. So the first DX7 that came out were quite hissy and quite noisy, but at the same time, a lot of people say they were quite warm in the actual saturated sound that comes out of it. After it's been converted into an analog sound. And even on the second model, the DX7 too, still, I think they got rid of a lot of the hiss, and I think they had a higher bit rate on the conversion, but still, once again, still quite a nice, warm sound out of them. Maybe not quite as punchy as the Roland stuff, so maybe not as much EQ on it, but there's definitely some wizardry going on in those DAs.
Yeah, definitely. The DX7, in fact, actually, I've got a Kimmy's Castle up there, which uses the same chips as the DX100 for the FM in the module. Exactly the same chip.
Yeah. How do you find that? Do you find that you can get something decent out of that, or does it just sound really sine wavy?
No, because it's got four operators as such, but there's a multitude of waves on each operator. So I think on the original DX7, DX100, you only had, was it a couple, 2 or 3? Was it sine, saw? I can't remember the exact waves that you had on the operators. But on the Kimmy's Castle, you've got I can't remember how many it is, but there's a quite a wide range of different waveforms that you never got on the original DX7. So when you start banging, even though it wasn't eight operators, you can get some far out sounds on that.
And obviously, it's what you can do on that new Arturia Micro Freak as well. You can kind of do similar stuff on that. So,
well, that's so isn't it that?
The
Arturia Micro Freak is a Platts basically.
Yeah. But if you're into like FM, and I mean even the Peak does FM now. The Roland System 8 does FM because they updated the firmware. So and you think about what Electron are doing with their groove boxes. There's the Digitone. It's all FM. So there's a real resurgence with FM at the moment. Big resurgence. And Yamaha are making some massive big workstation FM synths as well. So it shows the market wants FM.
FM, yeah, and is it scanned, the other style of synthesis?
Yeah, scanned, yeah. But I mean, technically it's additive, isn't it? When you think about the way it works, it's kind of it's like you're building blocks, you know, so it's additive. It's funny because you've got these synths that are both additive and subtractive. So and that doesn't mean that it's not like maths. 1 plus 1 take 1. It's not like that. But it's more like I can just imagine all the nerds going crazy at me right now. But it's kind of more like you're building your carriers and operators and that sort of stuff in your FM side. But then if you're then pulling it through a subtractive VCF output, you then got the ability to do things like put it through a filter, and you've got all the different filter types. You can put it through envelopes are kind of irrelevant here, but you can put it through like a VCA on the subtractive sort of way of doing it with envelopes. Do you know what I mean? Like it's more subtractive as opposed to additive. So whilst you can achieve similar things with both, when you start merging the two together, it all of a sudden becomes this kind of interesting world. And then if you've got something like a what's a good example? Well, the Peak's a good example because it's got distortion engines in it, and they're actually analog distortion engines. So then you can bring an FM through, so it's additive synthesis through a subtractive synthesis filter, and then brings this distortion in before it hits the VCA. It's going crazy.
They need to. It's all about making synthesis completely different, isn't it? We want to change some unique way now, because you've got your FM and like I say, your additive and your subtractive. If someone wants to come up with something completely new,
I think if you can't make a unique sound when you've got all these tools at your fingertips, if you have to go to someone else's patch, like what we were looking at someone else's patches tonight, weren't we? That's to me personally, it's a bit of a disappointment, because the way I see it is there is so much now available to us to become inventive with this, and there's a learning curve for a lot of the newbies, but grab someone's patch, like this guy that we were looking at earlier tonight, his patches, get his patch. He's got a Blue Monday patch here. Look at what he's done to create that patch, and then pull it apart and make it your own. Start from there, or start from an init patch. If some people get scared starting from an init patch, that's actually a good question. Who starts with an init patch on their synth? Inky, do you start with an init patch?
No, I usually. Not on anything really. I find something I quite like and then fiddle.
It's not a bad thing to do. Nobody. If anyone ever makes you feel like, if someone says to you, you're using someone's patch, you're a bad synthesist.
I definitely start with someone else's patch, because it's just in the ballpark.
Yeah.
So
it's
quicker than actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'll always tweak it. I won't ever leave it as that.
Yep.
So.
I think one of the worst examples, to put myself in real bad light right now, is I wrote this song called Forever, and I used a Moog Sub 37. It was kind of like when I first got it, and I fell in love with the synth, and I still got it. It's a beautiful synth. And there was a theremin type sounding patch on there, and I don't have a theremin, and I really wanted that kind of really warm Moogy theremin sound, but I didn't want the crazy sort of pitchy, I couldn't play a theremin if you tried. So it was great having it on the keyboard, because you could actually play proper notes on it, right? But that song pretty much just had the bass Moog patch in it. So there you go. I did change it a little bit. I think I adjusted the filter a bit, but not much.
But you could say that with samples and things, couldn't you? But at the end of the day, it's like, if you're writing a track, you've got an idea for a track, and you're writing this track, and you've got this idea for a sound, and you find it on a patch, then use it. They've been there to use. I mean, as long it's no point in finding the exact patch sound that you want and then going, well, it's not mine, so I'm gonna have to try and change it and not quite fit it into the track. It's, use site samples as long as you're not going to use, just buy a sample pack, say a techno sample pack, and basically take the drum loop, the bass loop, the synth loop, and then just put them together and go, there you are, done a track. I don't agree with that, but I mean, use the sample as it is if it fits your work, as long as you're not literally using the whole pack as a track.
Yeah, because it's how they go together as well, isn't it? I mean, your synth patch is only part of your track. It's only one part of your track.
Yeah, you may have constructed drum beats and everything, but that one synth patch just works.
Yeah. So if it's easy and it works, don't knock it.
Exactly. But I do see the part of creating your own sounds as well. Sitting down and creating your own sounds. So it's like, you have your track writing, because it depends on what your workflow is. If you're trying to work for a track quickly, you don't want to spend hours trying to create a sound that you've been looking for. When you can just find it in a patch. Yeah. You might need to tweak that patch, but
do you find that you have two heads on? So I have. One day I'll just be noodling on a synth for a couple of hours, 4 hours, and won't get any track written at all, but will have created a few sounds I might keep and then use them later. Yeah, or do you go out and look for that sound? How do you find that sound when you're working in a track?
I have probably three heads actually. I have the time when you're just noodling about, like you say, and you can come up with, just random sounds that might give you ideas for tracks. And sometimes you'll have a specific sort of track in mind when you go looking for them sounds. And then, like you say, sometimes you're just messing about with one of your keyboards, your synths or whatever. You get a really nice sounding patch or even a groove, and that becomes a track from nowhere. Yeah. So, yeah.
I'd agree.
Tracks come from nowhere, don't they, really? They're the best tracks. The ones that you planned out in your head for weeks on end, don't usually end up.
Yeah. It's the happy accidents where you're like, you hear something, you think, that would sound great. Like a bit of speech or something you think, wouldn't that be great in a track? Not your idea at all. And then, Yeah,
I kind of do all of that. And then there's another thing that I do where I experiment because this is me, you guys know that I'm a hardware guy. I think most of you guys are hardware as well. So, I mean, I do use computers, but when I'm kind of in that creative mood, I'll just grab some gear. I'll go into my little cupboard that's here and it's got all my stuff in it, and I'll start pulling things out. And a really good example of it was I wrote this track called Genesis. And it didn't start off as being Genesis. It started off being me just mucking around with some gear. And what it was I was using the base station 2, I should say, and the Moog the Moog Slim Fatty, which is like a little rack-mounted desktop type.
I always wanted one of that.
Yeah, they're great synths. And because they're just so simple. But the thing is it started to annoy me because it's only got 2 oscillators, and I really needed to. I wanted to see what it would sound like because it's got an audio in. If I used a Moog pedal with it, which is a ring mod pedal, and the ring mod pedal actually has an oscillator in it, so I then put that back through the Slim Fatty, and all of a sudden I was getting some sounds that I've never heard before in my life. And then I started mucking around with that and using LFOs and things like that. And all of a sudden, I started actually putting it through arpeggiators. And before you know it, I've got a track that I'm starting to lay down. And the track kind of reminded me of the birth of the universe. So that's why it was called Genesis. It kind of reminded me of these sounds, came out of nowhere. And all of a sudden, they exist. And that's kind of what we do, isn't it? We kind of find these, like you were saying, Inky, happy accidents. in a way, I don't know if I would say a happy accident. So I actually feel that we arrived there. We probably just surprised. That's probably why we call it an accident. But I feel that we kind of do have a bit of a control over what we're doing. We kind of know where we're going, and when we have this surprise that happens, it's kind of like, wow, I wasn't expecting that.
I don't know whether that's true for me. Maybe subconsciously, but in a way, I kind of think the opposite. The less I'm doing, the better the track will be. The more it's kind of just flowing, when it all comes together and you don't even know how. Like Daren said, when you think about it, yeah, I tend to think it's not me and it's something else. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just me.
Yeah,
flow.
Yeah, but I believe in complete accidents. I mean, I think I've written a couple of tracks that have been absolute complete accidents. In fact, it didn't even start out what I was making. I think I was going to say I was doing a drum and bass style track, and then before you know it, it's an ambient far out thing because it was an accident that came about, and before you know it, you ended up with a track that is an accident, but it's a good one.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think the term is just something that we gravitate towards, but whether it's an accident, whether it's like you said, Inky, subconscious, maybe it actually was known to you, but because at a conscious level it comes across as an accident. It could be that. Triple Eight Berg's saying it's, cerebral in some cases. Music tends to flow, doesn't it? So
yeah.
I reckon you could. It's almost like being in a time machine. It's in a way, if you were to set a stopwatch, and then forget that you set that stopwatch, and then go and do your music stuff, become creative, and then you go back and actually look at your stopwatch, you would actually be amazed how much time has gone. Like, it's hours and hours and hours. It could even be a whole day. I've done sessions where I've got up in the morning and just mucked around with gear, and then I've looked at it and it's 2 a.m. I've gone and I haven't eaten. That sort of craziness, that's happened to me. So I think it's it could be kind of a bit of that going on, where we're kind of just fixated in a time space thing, and we're just so creative that we don't really even know what's happening around the world. We're just in the groove.
Yeah, I've done that. I've spent hours and hours. Sometimes I've spent hours and hours and come up with absolutely nothing. I think, what a wasted.
Haven't we all done that? And speaking of time, it's been 1 hour and 45 on the stream already. I told you it goes quick.
Yeah, see? Well, the other thing I'll say, every time you always say, right, well, that's it, I've come up with absolutely nothing today, so the next, another 10 minutes and I'm going to pack up. And in that 10 minutes, you usually end up creating something that you want to stick with, and you end up spending another hours.
That's exactly right. That is absolutely right. In fact, I reckon that's actually what happened, if I remember rightly, when I was making that Genesis song. I honestly felt that, actually, if I remember rightly, I was in a bad mood. And I thought, I'm just going to go and play with my gear to try and cheer myself up. You know what I mean? Like, you're just doing that. Yeah. And then that kind of thing came to me and says, I want to try what it sounds like with 3 oscillators. And before you know it, we took off to another place. I did that. I've done that with heaps of tracks, actually. I mean, that one really sticks to me as a good story, but I mentioned that pedal that I bought that's broken, the MXR flanger pedal. And someone said to me, that song, The Chase by Giorgio Moroder, that's got that pedal in it. You should redo his song and see what it sounds like. And I started mucking around with the Moog Model D, and then put the flanger pedal through it. Did the bass line and all that sort of stuff. And then before you know it, I actually made a track that ended up on my Link album that I've done, and it's really ambient and spacey, and it's crazy. And people message me about it all the time. They say, I've never heard anything like that. Where did you get those sounds from? What presets? What synth did you use to make it? That's actually pretty cool when you hear someone say that. Like, what synth? Whereabouts can I get a synth that does that? And I'm like, oh shit, how am I going to explain this to this person? It's like this convoluted connection of like guitar pedals and effects and shit. It's like, no way am I going to be able to explain it. And I probably wouldn't even be able to do it again. So
Yeah, you was never intending to create that, was you? And that's
No.
that's how they are. And that's why you can, some of the good tracks, some of the sounds you can never explain how you got to in the end, because could have been hours of messing about and not coming up with anything, and bang.
yeah. Exactly, and I reckon we've all been there. We've all done that. Triple Eight Berg saying, "I've watched the Never Ending Story with my kids for the first time today. Surprised that Giorgio Moroder did the soundtrack. Yeah, he did it with Phil Oakey, didn't he? Is it Phil Oakey? Is that the guy from Human League? I think it's Phil Oakey, isn't it? You guys would probably know better than me, wouldn't you? Human League. This is okay. So Human League after Heaven 17. So go back to your early 80s electronic
Did
English.
Nick Kershaw have anything to do with it?
I think he was, but so Human League were like one of the very first electronic music bands, probably full stop, in the world, right? Definitely in the UK. And they had all these members, and some of the members split off and formed Heaven 17. And I don't know about Nick Kershaw, but he might. I don't know that part of the story. But then the other guy, now I'm going to have to Google it because you've done me now. I thought it was Phil Oakey.
I might be totally wrong. It's probably because I had
Phil
small.
Oakey. It's definitely Phil Oakey. He is the guy. He's still in Human League since 1977. There you go. And so him and Giorgio Moroder, he's actually he's 63 now, that guy. So that's getting on a bit. Sorry, Phil, if you're watching. I should have talked about getting old. I'm getting old too. But yeah, him and Giorgio got together. They did a whole bunch of tracks actually. So Never Ending Story was one, and then they did this other song called Goodbye Bad Times, which I absolutely love. I remember it came out, and it was about 1985 or something. I actually remember what I was doing when I first heard that track. You know when you hear music, and you can actually remember when the first time you heard it, like you might have been listening to the radio, and you were doing something while you were listening to the radio and the first time you heard it?
Yeah, I can remember quite a few different tracks like that.
What would be a good one to reminisce on?
Reminisce? Oh,
Kraftwerk song or something.
believe it or not, I didn't get into Kraftwerk till a bit later, actually.
Yeah.
It's a bit weird, but I can't remember how I heard Kraftwerk. It was probably on a tape.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to say. But I think when I first started getting into trance, so it probably been a Ferry Corsten track that I can remember.
Yeah. Okay.
I remember. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you go.
No, it's all right.
I remember when I was 4 and my mum went out the house and my dad put Paint It Black by the Rolling Stones on at full blast.
Oh yeah.
I'd never heard anything like it. I hid behind the sofa. And then within 5 minutes, loved it.
Yeah.
And he never really went crazy like that again. But I'd never heard anything like that loud or that big.
That track, Mick Jagger goes absolutely bonkers on stage when he does that. Have you ever seen him play that live? He kind of throws his hands in the air and runs around the stage, doesn't he? You know, when they're doing the sort of the bit with the, you know, that one, kind of that bit. So I can't even remember how it goes properly now, but I can actually remember him. I actually saw them live, and I remember him playing that track, and he goes bonkers.
He's pretty bonkers still, though, isn't he? To be fair, he's
wasn't
still
he in the news just recently? Did he? So he's been knighted and all that sort of stuff, hasn't he? So what was he in the news for? There was something. It was a positive thing, it wasn't a negative thing. Do you guys remember what it was? I might have to Google that. There was definitely something that was in the news about Mick Jagger recently? I think it was like last week or the week before. I know there's these memes at the moment that they're wondering if he's actually a time traveler. Have you seen that? Do you guys know what I mean by that? Because I mean, he's getting on. So they actually think he's a time traveler. And that's how he's able to still do these concerts. I don't know. There's some funny stuff going on. I can't actually find what it was. Why he was in the news. I just remember seeing something about him last week, and I think it was related to his knighthood or something. But yeah, anyway, that's enough about that. Sorry, Daren, you were reminiscing on the trance stuff, because I know you're big on the trance stuff, aren't you?
Well, am I or am I? I'd say yes, but that's not what started me off. I think it was going back to the mid-'80s, and I used to listen to a radio at 1 o'clock in the morning before school, and I used to set the tape recorder to play for the house hour, and that's where my electronic music sort of addiction came from. So it's sitting up at 1 o'clock in the morning before I went to school, recording the radio.
What were some of the ones that jump out at you that really influenced you in those early days? Anything?
I don't know the 11 on, but it's like Risque 3, which was Risque Madness.
Yeah.
Well, let's think. Stu Allen was the DJ who used to do the sort of Key 103. I used to do hip hop as well, but always a fan of that at the time. I'm trying to think. Alternate. Yeah. The name of them. Well, Nexus 21, I think they were. And they did that Alternate album as a joke originally, didn't they?
They did, yeah. I remember that. I actually liked that too. And we all knew that it was a joke, but I remember thinking to myself, I don't care if it's right. This is cool.
Well, didn't they? They were Nexus 21.
Yeah.
The pair of them, and they did a bet or something saying that they could make a hit album. I don't know, was it in a year or something?
Yeah, yeah.
So the guys of Alternate, and then before you know it, poof,
and it took off. And I think Nick was talking about this on Sonic State. I don't know if it was a couple of years ago. I remember them talking about it, and I think one of the guys that are in, the group of guys that go on the Sonic State live stream, he was involved in it somehow, whether he was in the recording studio or something. I remember they talked about it at quite some detail, and people would not know some of the stuff that they were talking about unless they're actually working with them. So yeah.
I got the album, so yeah. That was when because I still like to buy hard copies of stuff if I can. All this.
So you said you're up Manchester way, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever go? I mean, I guess the 90s. It's probably a bit harder because I'm probably a little bit older than you, so my influence from Manchester would have been Joy Division, and because that's really at the end of punk rock, and I mean punk rock was still going crazy in the late 70s, early 80s anyway, because it just kept going and there was massive following obviously, but the Joy Division they introduced synths into the punk sort of style, didn't they? They had a bit more of that sort of progressive. Let's call it progressive punk rock in a way, wasn't it? It was it started to become a little bit more thought-provoking sort of music, as opposed to just going out and banging your head against the wall, and screaming at the top of your lungs, which is fun, of course. But so for me, I was listening to. I think the first CD I ever bought was Joy Division Substance. That was the first CD I ever bought. And before CDs, obviously, I had tapes, and I'm just trying to think what tapes I had.
Pet Shop.
I don't think I actually started getting into the Pet Shop Boys until Introspective, when they brought Introspective out, which is that real colourful one that they brought out, and it had a song on it called "I'm Not a Dog."
Yeah.
Have you heard that track?
I Want a Dog.
I Want a Dog, that's it, yeah. That's it. I want
Yeah.
a dog.
Yeah, I've got problems. Yeah.
They were really like Neil Tennant and Chris Lowe were. Was it Chris Tennant and Neil Lowe? I forget whichever way it is. I think it's Neil Tennant, isn't it? They were really big on the Fairlight, big Fairlight guys, massive. So they're big sampling guys. Those guys.
Oh yeah, there was quite pioneers in some of the ways. It was simple.
Yeah. So, would you say Pet Shop Boys influenced you a little bit?
I say everything does,
Oh,
because
of course.
Pet Shop Boys. I used to love the Pet Shop Boys, which was weird because I didn't get into the first two albums because they had Please and Actually, didn't they? And they did that as a bit of a fun thing, so that you'd go to the record shop and say, "Can I have Pet Shop Boys, please?" Not the album.
I like that. Yeah, I bought those albums after I got into introspective, and then I've always liked that the first song they made a big hit with. What was it called again? West End Girls. I always liked that song.
That's a good track as well.
Yeah, and then I forgot about them. You know, I think a lot of people did actually, because I don't really know. See, when you live in different parts of the world, obviously what the radio plays is different for the region that you live in. So if you live in America, some people would have never even heard of Pet Shop Boys if you lived in America, because they weren't like massive in the US until later on. And then they were pretty big in Australia because we follow a lot of the English, and it's vice versa with you guys. You follow a lot of the Australian artists as well, like In Excess, and that would have been big in those days. So but those songs, like those albums, Please and Actually, weren't big in Australia. They weren't big albums, but I know they were a lot bigger in the UK. So, and it was, for me, I had to go back and discover them. Does that make sense? So, whereas probably you guys probably would have heard some of the tracks as singles on the radio.
Well, funnily enough, even though I knew about the Pet Shop Boys, I didn't get into them too much until Introspective, the album, came out, and then I did what you did. I went back and got.
There you go.
It was Introspective that actually kicked the Pet Shop Boys sort of fascination off.
Yeah.
Don't you think that was because it was more dance orientated?
Definitely. Definitely.
And we were into dance. Because we did have the Pet Shop Boys, we knew who they were.
Yeah.
But I think Daren was already down the dance music path quite heavily.
Yeah.
Right, fairly early on.
We were going to clubs.
I know we were.
We were going to clubs then. Yeah.
I think we have met in a club. Haven't we, Daren?
We think we have, yes.
Yeah.
That's funny.
In a queue, in a queue waiting for a gyroscope. They go on a gyroscope.
Yeah. A Christmas special as well. Didn't they?
Pardon?
Didn't they have dodgem cars there at the same time?
Yeah, in the other room, I think. I can't remember, but I just remember waiting to go on gyroscope. Do you know what those gyroscopes are?
Yeah.
When they,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stu Allen playing or Jeremy Healy?
Stu Allen would have been playing, but I don't know. Is it that? Yeah, because it was a big night, wasn't it? So, but yes, I remember.
That's another question. Do we think DJs have played an importance just as much as the people?
Absolutely. Oh, look, without a doubt. Without DJs, we wouldn't have heard the artists. I think, there's people. I was actually literally just about to say to you guys, about that time when Pet Shop Boys were out, in my early days, I was in the military, and so we'd finish work on a Friday Ave early, and we'd all get showered and splash ourselves with deodorant and everything, and then go out and try and pick up the girls. That's what we did. Went out to the clubs. And one of the things I used to go to was this club in the city in South Australia, which is right down the bottom of Australia, called Adelaide. And they had this club which played house music. It was all acid and house music, and it was all done through DJs. And if I never would have heard of 808 State, I would never have heard of the Beastie Boys, I wouldn't have heard of just so many artists that I heard of going when I was going to these clubs because of those DJs. There were so many artists that I've heard of, and I used to dance until my shirt just about fell off my back. It was, we were so sweaty from dancing our heads off, basically. That was all DJs that were doing that. We'd never see them play live, of course, because we were down in the crappiest city in Australia. They would never go there.
That's how I got into Orbital, I think. The DJ played Chime in, I can't remember what it probably was at Bowlers, actually. No, it might have been before that. But yeah, they played Chime, and that was it.
But do you know that Paul Hartnell, that's
Sorry,
how he knew...
I'm just apologising to Triple Eight, but I was born in Adelaide, so I can say whatever I like about the place. Keep going.
Did you know that Paul Hartnell, that's how he checked his track, Chime? He kept taking all his work to a local DJ, and the DJ was like, no, not good enough, no. And when he went with Chime, he played it in front of people, and Paul hadn't really expected that, and that's how he knew that when he'd got it. So he was going to a DJ to check himself out, I suppose.
Exactly.
Cool.
He just a 4-track tape recorder into it back at his house and said, "I've just wigged this up." Like saying, and he launched it. Then he said, "Can I have 1,000 copies if you can go and sell them at I thought, was it £1 a copy or £2 a copy or something?" He went, "I couldn't sell them." He said they wanted all 1,000 or something. He said, "They'll let them have them for £1 a copy."
Oh, I love that. Mikkel's saying Grace Jones. There you go. There's a name that springs up childhood memories for me. I don't know about you guys, but my old man I think he bought some vinyls of Grace Jones, and this would have been, she's the is she Jamaican? What was she? She spoke French, so it would have been those Caribbean countries. They spoke French as a native language, and they spoke English. And she ended up being like a model, right? Like a clothes fashion model, but she actually had a massive, huge singing career. She still does. And a lot of the music that she played in the 80s, if you've never ever heard Grace Jones, go and check out a song called Libertango that she made. Check it out. It is amazing. So and this is real early 80s stuff. So, it will bring you right back to that real clean sort of music they used to make in the early 80s, where everything was just, musicians were just polished to the degree of perfection. I'm thinking like, oh yes, I think she was a Bond girl, that's right. Yeah.
Kill 1980.
Yeah.
Kill. That was Duran then.
Yeah. Yeah. What was that? View to a Kill?
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. That brings back memories, doesn't it? What were you guys doing when A View to a Kill came out?
I've no clue. 1988. I was probably listening to some dance music.
I'd finished high school. I'd just finished high school at 88.
Yeah, that's the same year I finished.
Yeah. So.
And I got into dance music that year.
I was clubbing.
I heard Love Can't Turn Around.
Yeah. Love that.
And the same guy made a track called House Nation.
Oh, House Nation, yes. Love that too, yeah. That was a massive change, wasn't it? I reckon music changed around 87, 88. It kind
that
of...
record changed lives.
Changed lives, yeah, absolutely.
Changed my life.
Yeah.
It's totally changed my life. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that record. I've carried his records. I've met him a couple of times as well, which was really nice.
Wow.
Yeah. 20 years apart.
You sent us Kylie Minogue.
Well, I don't make any apologise for Kylie. I actually went and saw her earlier this year. She still bangs it out of her lungs. Tiny little girl she is, isn't she? Can you believe she's over 50 years old?
No.
She doesn't look a thing near 50, does she? She's definitely carrying the age well. Do you guys still have what was the other guy that she used to hang about with? Was it what was his name? Jason Donovan.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah,
he still hang about up your way? Because I don't think we know much about him anymore here.
he's doing the Technicolor Dreamcoat again.
Oh, yeah, that's
cool,
right.
yeah.
He was big on that, wasn't he? Yeah.
He went away for a while. I'm not sure. I don't know if they had issues or something, but he's back in doing Technicolor Dreamcoat touring in the theatres.
Wow. Wow. That's a blast from the past. Yes, Neighbours were where they originated from. There was a TV series called Neighbours in the 80s. And you guys,
That was revolutionary.
you guys
for
would have
us.
seen that, yeah.
What was really cruel though is they broadcast it in the school holidays, right? And we'd never seen anything that fun really. All our soaps were quite serious. So it's like they had dream sequences and mad stuff in the early days. And so we had to video record it every day because we were at school and they put it on at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you used to have to video it before they put it on. Then it became really popular. But yeah, if you was from the early days, you used to have to video record it and then watch it later on.
They had a heap of people come music-wise from that TV show. I mean, we could sit here and talk about them for hours, but Natalie and Bruglia and yeah, there's heaps that came out of Neighbours. And when did it finish? It did finish, or was it still on? I think it finished, didn't it? I actually didn't watch it much.
It went off there on the BBC quite a few years ago. They won't buy the rights to it, but our Channel 5 bought the rights and they still show it.
Is it still going? 2006.
Yes.
That's still going. No, it's still going. 2000.
Still going.
2000. So Fremantle now own it. That you've seen that. Fremantle distributors. Whenever you watch those movies, you see Fremantle all the time nowadays. So how many seasons is it? Holy crap! Let's not even go there. You guys can look it up on Wikipedia. Oh my god, that's insane.
What, 30 years? 30 years? 30 years? 40 years? 30 years.
40. I reckon it'd be close to 40, seriously. Be easily 40.
Yeah, 40.
There's another show that we've got here. I mean, you guys have got long-running shows like Coronation Street as well, and stuff like that. I know it's not unheard of, long shows. But we've got this other show that I never watch, and I actually do it on purpose because I hate it. It's called Home and Away, and there was a child star in that show in the early 80s, and now she's a mum, and I think she's about to turn 50, and she's on the radio, and the way she talks now, like, it's crazy, like, that every time I think of her as a child, because that's when I watched it when I was a kid. She was like a child actor. And you're listening to her on the radio, she's just one of those, you know how like you listen to Richard Hammond on the radio, that sort of thing. She's just like that. She just talks and cracks jokes and things like that. But, she can be quite vile too. It's just crazy how you go through life watching people completely change, isn't it? And we've completely just gone off on a tangent, haven't we?
Well, no. Well, I'm just thinking in my head I'm still 21. But when I went to the Orbital gig the other week, my feet were going, no, you're not 21. You need to maybe sit down. I was like, no, what's this? So in our heads, we get to a certain age and we kind of stay there. We accept that we're experiencing more, but we're kind of like that kind of mental age.
Yeah.
Am I sounding nuts? Or am I, is everyone agreeing?
I know, I get that.
I don't think I'm the age I am. I'm like 25, but obviously I'm not 25. And it's like really quite annoying when I get reminded by real life I'm not 25,
But the thing is that we are 25 in our brain. It's just that the body doesn't quite...
Or maybe just 5 in my brain.
The body doesn't quite respond the way it used to. It's kind of like, when you've got a slow computer and you think, come on, hurry up. That's what it's like. We're just, I'm just trying to think of the name of this person that I've, because I know that there's people in the chat that will kill me if I don't mention it. Kate was the name of the actress, and her character name was Sally. That's who I was.
I knew it was going to be Sally. Yeah, she was one of the first people, wasn't she?
Yeah.
I don't watch Home and Away.
I don't watch it either. It just absolutely annoys the absolute living bejesus out of me. But yeah, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, in terms of like talking about music and synths and stuff like that, there were like those sort of shows like Coronation Street, and you know we used to watch those as well. There were a lot of people that came out of those shows and became really famous musicians out of those, and actually formed their careers, you know, from that TV sort of background. And you would never have picked it, would you, at the start? Like if you saw their early days when they were acting, you would have never have picked it. They would have been these amazing musicians, would you? You know, there's so many you could name. What was Robbie? What's his name? From. Oh God, what's his name? I'm getting the UK guy, the Robbie, really famous guy that used to be in a TV show. And
Robert. Nope. I think.
I'm trying to think of his name now. Robbie Williams.
Oh, was he in a TV show?
I think he was. Yeah, he was in like a. What was the TV show he was in? You know, he's actually younger than me. That annoys me. What was the TV show he was in? I know he was in that band Take That in the early days, wasn't it? That was like the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I remember from.
Was it? No, it wasn't. It wasn't a TV show. It was a movie. One of those child movies, famous ones. I'm trying to think.
I know Russell Crowe was in Neighbours, wasn't he? Russell Crowe made one appearance in Neighbours.
Oh, yeah, maybe, yeah.
As some like really dodgy dude.
You know, Russell Crowe is actually a Kiwi. He's a New Zealander. So
No, we don't know that.
He's not originally from Australia, but he lives in Australia now, and he owns a rugby league footy team, and yeah, he's pretty much Australian. But yeah, for those who don't know, it's a bit like well, I mean, how many people do we have from our countries living in the US, living in LA and New York and places like that? And we always say, "Oh, he's one of ours," and they've been living there for like 30 years, like AC/DC. They're Australian, and they've been living in the US for like 30 years. Oh dear. So anyway, I reckon we've just about done the stream to death tonight. What do you guys? What did you think, Daren? You've enjoyed yourself tonight?
Yeah, well, let's say we started talking about from music, the peak, all the way to Neighbours.
It went crazy. It does that. And you know what? That's what I love about it. We can talk about whatever we want. So, you know, and the guys in the chat, they're all chatting along with us too. So, and you know, it's really good. It's kind of like a little family going on here in a way, chatting about stuff. What I was going to say last week, I mentioned I didn't have anything to talk about, so I ended up doing the peak. I actually set up the Sub 37 here. It's pretty big though, so if you guys want me to start looking at some of that stuff, or even the Moog Slim Fatty, I could do that. Just what I like to do is I like to have something that we can, you know, it's kind of like the centerpiece, it's the theme of the stream, but then we've got all our little conversations that we branch out from. You know, we're allowed to do that, of course, but if you guys want me to do anything specific gear-wise, let me know during the week. Both of you are more than welcome to come back anytime you like. I love having you here. It's good. It's awesome. Actually, I'm surprised how cool and how stable the stream has been with 2 Skype calls running. It's we don't want to be telling the Australian government that their internet's working better, because yeah, you don't ever tell government that stuff.
Just touching wood.
Yeah. Maybe we could, We can get Daren to talk more about his modular stuff.
Yeah, well, that's something that I need to start learning because I've got it up there and I don't use it as much as I should.
Yeah. Well,
I've got the.
All I do is, I've talked about this before with other guys, is I've got, this camera here is just a little webcam, little Logitech webcam that you can buy from your local computer shop. And they're cheap as anything. Now, I mean, you guys, I don't know what you guys have got, but, that does the job for streams. And then the camera that I use to put above me is just a video camera. Those handy cams that you buy. The reason why I use one of those is because they're really good at low light and focusing those handy cams, and you can get a little extension cable and zoom in. So I'm not actually touching the camera here, I'm just touching this thing that's comes with it. It's a little extension cable and I can zoom in and stuff. Those cameras can be pretty cheap, like a couple of $100. So if you want to start showing gear and stuff like that on your channel, that I would definitely recommend. They're easier to sort of set up because you can chuck a HDMI cable into them, feed that straight into your computer and stream. Now to do that you need a little capture card, but they're not very expensive. So these little things add up, but you can just slowly, month after month buy a couple of bits and pieces and you've got it going pretty quick. And the light that I use to just here is just one of those little, those office lights with a little arm thing that you can move around. The LED, you don't need to get fancy photography stuff. You can, but I don't use it. You can see it's pretty harsh lighting. And if you want to soften that, you can use things like soft boxes and stuff to make that's very harsh. You can see this very harsh shadows on there. Do you see how my finger's making a very hard shadow? If I was to put like a softener over that, it would look a lot more richer and more professional looking. But if it's just for live streams, why do you need to? It just makes things simple. So there you go. Triple Eight Berg has got an idea. Let's hear his idea. We're just waiting in suspense. Let's bring up the main chat window. Here we go. Triple Eight Berg's got the floor. Here we go. Still waiting. Don't ever do this on live stream. Wait for someone to type. Here we go. Some Lyra 8 can be purchased for $100 US in a kit form. Yeah? Someone gonna donate me that? I was telling you guys that I've got to sell some gear, and I'm not I'm not trying to get sympathy or anything, but there's a point where you got too much stuff and you've got to sell it because you're not using it. So the first thing that's going to go out the door here is dare I say it, it's called a Korg Radius. Has anyone heard of that?
No, I haven't actually. Korg Radius.
So around about 2006 it came out, and it's a digital synth by Korg, and in fact it's based on the MS-2000, I think, synth engine. So it's kind of like their VA stuff that they made. So yeah, I'm going to be selling that. It'll be sad to see it go because it's a lot of real synth heads swear by that synth, but unfortunately for me, I haven't gelled with it. And it's gonna go on the local. I don't know if I'll eBay it or Reverb. I don't know yet. So, I'm definitely not putting it on the local. Do you guys have Gumtree in the UK?
Yeah.
What do you have, Craigslist or Gumtree? Which is the one you use more?
Gumtree, I don't use it though.
It's like the free one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's pretty dangerous, isn't it, to use because you get a lot of dodgy people through it. Is that the same over your way?
Possibly. I've used it myself.
No.
Have you heard of people like buying cars through it and then the cars get stolen? Things like that. People taking their cars for test drives and they get stolen because they've bought them through Gumtree.
I've not heard of that, but I won't be surprised.
Well, yeah, if you live long enough in certain places, nothing will surprise you, does it? So, But that happens on other sites as well, doesn't it?
I think it happens on Craigslist as well. Yeah, I mean, you watch those. They've got all those shows in the US, those judge type shows, like Judge Judy, and there's all those types of shows where you see people suing people because something's gone wrong on Craigslist. Pretty much, I got this contractor off of Craigslist, and now he's run off with my $5,000 deposit. It's quite funny, isn't it? You feel sorry for him, but like honestly, it's almost the stupidity award has to come out first, doesn't it? So definitely won't be selling my Rode Radius on Gumtree if anyone's wondering. It'll probably be Reverb. I'm thinking Reverb. I want to try them out. I haven't used them before to sell stuff. I've used them to buy stuff. Anyone here use them to sell stuff? Reverb? Are we giving Reverb a thumbs up to sell? I know they kind of work a bit different to eBay with the fees and everything, don't they? So I get that, but I'm just wondering if their experience has been different or not. Triple Eight Berg's swearing on this Lyra kit thing.
What's he saying? That you can get a Lyra 8 kit?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to build something on a stream though. I think might be a little bit yawnish. Yeah, I mean, we could check it out. Definitely, I'm not going to say complete no, but we'll check it out. Wagyu's saying he sold a fair few things that was fine on Reverb. There you go. If Wagyu says it's good, then it's good. That's the Wagyu's seal of approval. There we go. I think my Radius will probably sit on there for months. That's my gut feeling. It's one of those synths that you have to wait for someone who definitely wants it to buy it. Because I'm not going to put it on there and sell it cheap. I'm going to wait for it to get at least the value that I think it's, I'm not going to overprice it or anything, but it can't go crazy cheap. I'm not just going to give stuff away. People can fight for it. Yeah, they're all talking about the Lyra. I'm gonna have to check them out. I actually don't know really anything about them other than a brief thing. I don't know where I saw it, NAMM or Super Booth or something. I don't know. So you guys probably don't know about them either, right?
It's Russian, isn't it? And it's like touch contact. So it's like you're the contact. So when you touch it, you're creating the electricity that makes the contact. Isn't it touch sensitive in that way?
Yeah, like the Microfreak. Something like that, isn't it?
No, it's definitely more like electronical with pure electrics.
Oh,
so you
right,
can even
change
it.
Yeah.
Change it with how much moisture's in your skin and stuff like that.
Okay.
So it's not.
Yep.
It's an analog synth, but yeah, you play these metal things, which I think can be alter the sound as well. Yeah, looks good.
Well, we can investigate it. Definitely have a look at it. So yeah. Oh, okay. It's a drone synth, and you use cathode. But yeah, okay, I get what you're saying. So yeah, you're creating.
Yeah.
You're creating the. You're like earthing the circuit or joining the circuit. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Fair enough, skis. All right. I actually didn't get a chance to drink a beer tonight. I was a bit disappointed in myself with that. Next week, I don't know if I'll be doing a live stream or not. So it's touch and go. I've got I'm actually working Friday, Saturday, Sunday at like a show thing. So I'm going to be standing all day, and I don't know if I get a chance. I'll still do the live stream, but if not, it'll be a premiere, like I did a few weeks ago when I missed out on the stream. But I'm going to see if I can try and do one. I don't think it's, it's late at night for me, and I don't think there's any reason why I shouldn't be able to do it. So we'll see how we go. But yeah, what do you think? We'll finish. You guys happy?
Yeah.
Everyone happy in the chat? We're gonna say goodbye. Enjoy the rest of your Saturdays, whatever part of the world you're in. Hopefully you guys have a good week, and we'll catch up during the week. Obviously, we can talk about what's going to go on the next stream. But if you do want to Let me know what goes on there. You can catch me on the socials below. And other than that, wave everybody. Say bye. Bye
Bye.
from Australia. Bye from the UK. And bye from the chatties. Awesome. Stream is ending.